He left. Maybe he ghosted. Maybe he said he needed space. Maybe he just evaporated, no explanation, no closure, just a red receipt and a whole lot of silence. And you did the work. You cried, you journaled, you went to the gym, you unfollowed him, you had the I'm totally over it conversation with your best friend approximately 47 times. And then out of nowhere, your phone lights up. Hey, been thinking about you. And just like that, every single thing her healing journey built got wobbled in 3 seconds flat. Her stomach flipped. Her brain started running a highlight reel of every good moment they ever had. Her logic quietly packed a bag and left the building. Because something about him coming back feels like proof, like validation, like maybe she wasn't crazy for believing in this thing after all. But before she starts rewriting the love story in her head, somebody has to say it. His return is not a confession. It's not an apology. And it is absolutely not a sign from the universe. So let's get into the real psychology behind why men come back, because the answer is going to reframe everything. 1. The ego return. He didn't miss you. He missed the feeling. Let's be very clear about something that the romantic comedy industry has spent decades trying to bury. There is a massive difference between missing a person and missing what a person did for you. And most men, when they come back, are not coming back for you. They're coming back for the experience of you, the comfort, the laughs, the way you made them feel seen, wanted, and emotionally fed without them having to do very much to earn it. That distinction sounds subtle. It is not subtle. It is actually the entire thing. Think of it this way: when someone misses their favorite restaurant, they don't miss the building. They miss the warm bread, the familiar smell, the way they always left feeling satisfied. The restaurant didn't change. They just ran out of other options that hit the same way. He didn't come back because he had some profound awakening about your worth. He came back because the emotional supply chain got disrupted. Psychologists call this object relations, the way people mentally store others not as full human beings, but as objects associated with specific emotional experiences. To his nervous system, you are not just a person. You're a source, a reliable one. And when that source went quiet, something in him registered the absence, not as loss exactly, but as a gap, a comfort gap. And his brain, being the lazy and efficient machine it is, went looking for the fastest way to fill it. Her self esteem, unfortunately, does not factor into that calculation at all. The wild thing is, she'll feel it as love. She'll interpret his return as proof that what they had was real. And some of it probably was. But real feelings and strategic emotional reentry are not mutually exclusive, and confusing the two is exactly how she ends up back at square one, just with more hope and less protection. His return says something about his needs, not her value. 2. The rubber band theory. Debunked at some point, someone handed women the rubber band theory and said, "Here, this will help." And women ran with it. Hard. The idea being, men pull away like a rubber band, and if you just give them enough space, they'll snap back to you naturally. It sounds poetic. It sounds like it was written by someone who understood men deeply. It was not. Because what the theory conveniently leaves out is why the rubber band snapped back. And in most real world cases, it has nothing to do with him reaching the end of his emotional tether and being magnetically pulled back by the force of genuine connection. It has everything to do with what happened on the other end of that rubber band while he was stretched out doing whatever he was doing. Translation: he didn't come back because the distance made him realize your value. He came back because whatever he went to go find didn't work out the way he planned. The new girl had too many boundaries. The situationship got complicated. The bachelor lifestyle got lonely around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. His ego took a hit somewhere, and he needed a soft place to land. These are not romantic reasons. These are logistical reasons. And logistics dressed up in "I missed you" texts have destroyed more women's peace than almost anything else in modern dating. Research on relationship cycling, that's the pattern of breaking up and getting back together repeatedly, shows that couples who reconcile without addressing the original issues report lower relationship satisfaction and higher emotional instability than couples who either stayed together or separated cleanly. meaning the rubber band, when it snaps back without any real repair work, tends to sting more than it soothes. So when he reappears with that vague, low effort, been thinking about you energy, the rubber band didn't bring him back. Something else snapped. And it probably wasn't about her at all. Not ideal. 3. The nervous system trap. Why it feels like love, so he texts. And within seconds, her body does something that her brain has absolutely no control over. Her heart rate picks up. There's a warmth in her chest. Something that feels suspiciously like excitement mixed with relief, mixed with, okay, maybe I should respond. And she'll call that feeling love, or chemistry, or fate. It is none of those things. What it actually is her nervous system doing what nervous systems do when they've been conditioned by inconsistency. And this is where the psychology gets uncomfortably specific. When a relationship has been marked by push and pull, closeness followed by distance, warmth followed by withdrawal, the brain doesn't process that as a red flag. It processes it as a pattern. And patterns, no matter how painful, become familiar. And familiar to the nervous system registers as safe, even when it is the opposite of safe. This is the intermittent reinforcement trap. It's the same psychological mechanism behind slot machines. The reward doesn't come every time, and that unpredictability doesn't make the brain give up. It makes the brain more fixated, more hooked. Because the hit, when it finally comes, floods the system with dopamine in a way that a consistently kind and available person simply never will. Stable love doesn't spike dopamine. Chaos does. So when he comes back, her body isn't responding to him specifically. It's responding to the end of withdrawal. The dopamine system, which has been running low since he went quiet, suddenly gets a signal that the source is back online. And that biochemical rush gets labeled as butterflies, as undeniable connection, as proof that this must mean something. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, complicates it further. If there was any physical intimacy in this relationship, her brain has already built neurological associations between him and feelings of attachment. His name alone can trigger a mild oxytocin response. Her nervous system is not lying to her. It's just working with deeply outdated information. For the real reasons men come back, not what you think. Forget the poetic explanations. Forget that he finally realized what he lost narrative that every rom-com has been selling since the 90s. When men come back, the reasons are almost always one of three things, and none of them are particularly flattering, but all of them are useful information. Reason 1: the ego supply ran dry somewhere else. Men who leave relationships or situationships without real closure tend to have a destination in mind. Another woman. A fantasy. A version of freedom that felt more appealing than commitment. And for a while, that destination delivers. But ego supply, the feeling of being wanted, chosen, and emotionally prioritized, has a shelf life when it isn't built on anything real. New connections require effort. New women have their own walls, their own standards, their own unbothered energy. And at some point, the cost of extracting validation from somewhere new starts to outweigh the comfort of somewhere familiar. That's when her name resurfaces in his phone. Reason 2: she visibly leveled up and he noticed. This one is real, and it's worth acknowledging. Sometimes a man leaves, and the woman he left actually does the work not to get him back, but because she had no other choice but to grow. New confidence, new boundaries, a life that looks genuinely good from the outside. And men notice that. Attraction, for men, is heavily visual and status linked. If she looks better, moves differently, and seems less available than before, that registers. The problem is, even in this case, his return is still fundamentally about his renewed interest, not sudden emotional maturity. Motivation matters. Reason 3: pure convenience and low effort opportunity. No drama, no deep psychology. He's bored, she's accessible, and reaching out costs him nothing. The bar for sending a text is extraordinarily low. This reason accounts for more comebacks than anyone wants to admit. 3 reasons. 0 of them are he had a breakthrough. 5. What she does wrong when he returns, so he's back. And everything that was just covered, the ego supply, the nervous system trap, the convenience factor, none of it registers in real time. Because in real time, her brain is running a completely different program. One that was installed somewhere between her first heartbreak and every love song she's ever heard on a long drive. And that program, the moment he reappears, starts making decisions she's going to need several therapy sessions to fully unpack. The first mistake, she rewards the return without acknowledging the absence. He texts, she responds warmly, and just like that, the slate gets wiped clean. No conversation about what happened. No acknowledgement of the silence. Just seamless reentry, like he never left, like the gap didn't cost her anything. And to him, that communicates one very specific thing, that there are no consequences for disappearing. That she will always be there. That the door doesn't just stay unlocked, it swings wide open with a welcome mat and her best energy on full display. Bad day to be her standards. The second mistake, she over explains and over justifies her own feelings. Instead of staying composed and observing his behavior, she starts narrating, telling him how much it hurt, explaining why she's been distant, walking him through her emotional journey in detail, as if presenting a strong enough case will make him choose to show up differently. It won't. Men do not change their behavior toward a woman because she explained her pain articulately. They change, if they change at all, because the dynamic itself shifted. Vulnerability without changed behavior on his end is just emotional exposure with no return on investment. The third mistake, she treats his return as the apology. His presence becomes the resolution. The fact that he came back gets interpreted as him saying sorry, as him admitting she was worth returning to. And so she skips the part where accountability actually gets established. She moves straight to relief, straight to warmth, straight to giving him the version of her that he left before he's done a single thing to deserve it again. Yeah, that happened. 6. How to actually read his return. Is it real? Not every return is a manipulation. Not every man who comes back is running a calculated ego play. Some returns are genuine, messy, imperfect, and late, but genuine. The problem is that genuine returns and convenience returns feel almost identical in the first 2 weeks. Same warm texts. Same I missed you energy. Same temporary effort that looks exactly like change until it doesn't anymore. So the question isn't whether he came back. The question is, what kind of back is this? And the answer is never in what he says. It is entirely in what he does consistently over time, without being asked twice. A genuine return has a very specific fingerprint. He acknowledges the gap without being prompted. Not a vague, sorry things got weird deflection, but an actual, direct acknowledgement of what happened and why it was a problem. He doesn't wait for her to bring it up and then get defensive. He leads with it. Because a man who actually did the internal work knows exactly what he's returning from, and he comes back with that awareness front and center. He also tolerates her recalibration without punishing her for it. If she's quieter than before, less available, slower to warm up, a man with real intentions reads that as reasonable and gives her the space to come back at her own pace. A man running a convenience play gets frustrated almost immediately. The moment her guard makes things inconvenient, his effort drops. That right there is the entire test, and it usually reveals itself within the first 3 to 4 weeks. Watch for consistency in the invisible moments, not just the grand gestures, not just the texts when he's clearly bored at night. What does he do on a regular Wednesday? Does he follow through on small things he said he'd do? Does his behavior stay level when she isn't performing excitement back at him? Real accountability looks boring from the outside. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with a speech. It shows up in patterns, not performances. And patterns take time to read, which means the smartest thing she can do when he first returns is slow down, say less, and watch everything. 7. What the smart woman does this is the part nobody talks about enough. Because most relationship content stops at know your worth and calls it a day, which is fine as a concept and almost completely useless as a strategy. Knowing your worth means nothing at the moment he reappears. Every behavioral pattern she had before he left snaps right back into place like muscle memory. Worth without execution is just a motivational poster on a wall she never looks at. So, what does the smart woman actually do when he comes back? She slows down before she responds. Not as a game, not to seem mysterious or hard to get, but because her nervous system, as covered earlier, is not a reliable narrator in this moment. The dopamine spike is real, the oxytocin pull is real, and making a major emotional decision from inside a biochemical reaction is the equivalent of grocery shopping on an empty stomach. Everything looks good. Nothing is being evaluated clearly. Slowing down is not playing hard to get. It is giving her prefrontal cortex enough time to catch up with her limbic system. She also stops auditioning. One of the most exhausting things women do when a man returns is unconsciously shift into a performance, being funnier, warmer, more available, more easygoing than they actually feel, because some part of them is trying to make sure he doesn't leave again. That energy is readable, and it communicates the wrong thing entirely. The smart woman doesn't perform. She observes. She lets him carry the weight of reentry because that weight belongs to him. Stoic philosophy, specifically the principle of amor fati, acceptance of what is, without emotional inflation, applies here in a very practical way. She doesn't catastrophize his return into a love story, and she doesn't catastrophize it into a trap. She holds it neutrally and lets his behavior do the talking over time. Her peace becomes the standard. Not her hope, not her history with him, not the chemistry her nervous system keeps bringing up as evidence. If his actions, consistently and without her coaching, move toward that standard, then there's something worth evaluating. If they don't, she already has her answer. She just has to be willing to read it. The goal was never to get him back. The goal was always to build something that didn't require her to shrink, perform, or negotiate her own comfort to keep it together. If he fits into that, great. If he doesn't fit into that anymore, that's information too. And information, used correctly, is the most protective thing she can have. Conclusion. So let's bring it all the way back. He came back. And now she knows what that actually means, and more importantly, what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean she won. It doesn't mean he finally got it together. And it definitely doesn't mean the version of the relationship that hurt her is suddenly going to operate differently just because he missed the comfort of having her around. His return is data. That's it. What she does with that data, how calm she stays, how clearly she observes, how firmly she holds the standards she built while he was gone, that's where her actual power lives. The women who come out of these situations stronger are not the ones who made the perfect decision. They're the ones who stopped making decisions from a place of fear, longing, or nervous system chaos and started making them from a place of self possession. That's the shift. And it's available to every single woman watching this. If this hit home, if you recognized yourself somewhere in this video, drop a comment below and tell me your story. Every situation is different, and I read through the comments personally. You might be surprised what a little outside perspective can do. And if this gave you something real to think about, share it with a woman who needs to hear it right now because somebody in your circle is staring at that text trying to decide what to do. And if you are not subscribed yet, that is the most important thing you can do right now. Seriously, hit that subscribe button because this channel exists for exactly this, giving women the unfiltered, psychologically grounded perspective that most people are too polite to say out loud. New videos drop regularly, and you do not want to be late to these conversations.